Good morning, evening, afternoon, everyone. I am Tanner. This is Tanner Likes Movies, and welcome to the 2022 Movie of the Year. I've assembled 35 movies, with a few honorable mentions, of what I think are the best films of the year. Now, before we get into this, I want to clarify what I think is a 2022 movie. This is different for everyone. I'm a bit of a weirdo about this according to movies, but every other industry is this way, so I just am used to that. So, to me, a 2022 movie is any movie that was available for wide release in the US, which is where I am, in the year 2022. I'm just a normal person. I don't get screeners. I don't get to go to film festivals. So for me, the only time a movie is available is when it's available to the wide public. So there are some movies on here that IMDb or Letterboxd may list as 2021 films. I've double checked to make sure that all of those had their wide US release in 2022. If you have a problem with that, that's totally okay. I understand. Feel free to remove whatever movies you don't think qualify from this list. My ranking would still be the same without those. So if you see something and you're like, wait, that's a 2021 movie. Totally fair. I'm just weird about it, and I can't see things I don't see. So this is the way I do it. This is the way I account for it. So before we get into a top 35, I have a couple of honorable mentions that I want to get into straight away. So here we go. So our first honorable mention is Emily the Criminal. I've seen this resonate with a few people more than it did with me. That's totally okay. I'm not saying one way is right or wrong. I thought Aubrey Plaza was amazing in this. I really liked her performance. I think she is super fun and definitely seems like she enjoyed the role of being sort of this stealthy, criminal, techie person. I just didn't think the rest of the movie came up to her level with the performance. And that's okay. That happens sometimes. And I totally get why people may enjoy it. Again, if you're there for her performance, you're going to be satisfied. I just think there's other stuff that's stronger this year. Another honorable mention is Prey. This, of course, is the sort of pseudo-sequel to Predator movies of the past. The setting is really cool, set in sort of like Native American times of the U.S. Amber Midthunder, who is the main actor in this, she is a star. She's so good, conveys so much without saying a lot in certain portions of the film as well. There were a couple moments where the CGI, not necessarily of the Predator suit, but of other things kind of took me out. There felt like a few things that could have been practical that were just CGI, probably for budget reasons. And it was a little slow of a burn for an action movie for me, but the highs were great. I thought the concept was really cool, and it was a fun take on something that is kind of tried and true by this point. My last honorable mention is Duel. The concept for this is people create clones of themselves when they're near death so that their family doesn't have to grieve. If those people somehow miraculously survive, then the clone and the original person duel each other to the death so that only one of that person gets to live. The concept alone is worth mentioning. I think Karen Gillan and Aaron Paul are both great in this. There wasn't a lot looking back that I remember from it outside of a few key sequences, so that's why it's a little lower on my list. But if you like the concept, it definitely delivers on that and is worth a watch. All right, now we're getting into the actual ranked films. I would say even with the honorable mentions that these are all movies that I recommend, that I think if you like the sound of them, you should definitely check out. How I rank them obviously is going to be very subjective, but just consider all of these recommends, some of the recommends just being stronger than the others, but I would say all of these are worth a watch. Coming in number 35, we have Fresh, where a guy and a girl meet in a grocery store and things go very wildly in the course of the movie. One of the things I love about this movie is that the pacing is really, really good. I love that sort of the turn of the movie, which is kind of the conceit, the idea of the movie in itself. But if you don't know it, I'm not going to spoil what it is. I love that happens at a time you're not really expecting it. It goes a little bit longer than you think to get there, but it's not like the twist of the movie. It's like half an hour in is when the movie sort of turns, and they reveal the title card then. That's my favorite title card placement of the entire year. Sebastian Stan is very unsettling, and I still don't know if I trust him. Definitely worth a watch. Coming at number 34, we have Jackass Forever. I'm still surprised at how much I like this movie. It has all the things you expect from a Jackass movie. Ridiculous stunts, dick jokes, exposed penises, all the things you pay the ticket price for. But what really surprised me is, first of all, seeing all of the Jackass people that I grew up with old and haggard and still having a blast making Jackass is weirdly heartwarming, especially since they're sort of ushering in a new era of Jackass people. I really liked the sort of community feel of this. I also think this movie does a great job of accounting for COVID, which is something that you see more and more in movies that have come out in the last couple of years. I just thought it was really fun and also kind of sweet in the weirdest way. And someone gets hit in the balls by a softball pitcher. So, it has something for everyone. Coming in number 33, we have The Fabelmans. There are a few pacing issues with this latest Spielberg, and there's also a random bit of like CW Riverdale level high school drama. That aside, The Fabelmans is like a cheat code for anyone who makes anything. I wanted to go make movies after I saw it, and I've never made a movie in my life. It's everything but true autobiography from Spielberg here. I mean, it's not about Steven Spielberg, but the kid is young Steven Spielberg. It's an odd sort of layering of that, but you definitely see where the passion for film comes from Spielberg's parents. Sort of the artsy side meets the analytical side. All of that really works here. It also just glorifies movies in a way that few movies can, and the last 20 minutes are like pure film nerd bliss. I absolutely adore the last 20 minutes. It's a little long, but it's worth it. And also, Paul Dano is incredible in it, as he is in everything. Number 32, we have Glass Onion. This has been the trickiest one to place for me. It's one of my most recent watches, so I still haven't quite had time to settle on it. I also adore Knives Out, so I didn't have super high standards. I try not to make my standards astronomical for any movie, but I did know that I was probably going to enjoy this, and I definitely enjoyed it. It's just kind of deciding how much I did, because I love certain aspects of it. I love how silly the filmmaking is. I love how over top all of the sequences are. I love the casting decisions. Shout out to Batista and Janelle Monáe. And I think it's my favorite set design of the year. I love the set they're on. Your mystery is sort of only as good as your ending, though, and for me, the ending wasn't quite there. There were moments in this movie that I thought I might like it more than Knives Out, but that just isn't the case, because the ending just kind of fell a little flat for me. Not saying it's a bad movie by any means. I enjoyed my time with it. I think it's funnier than the first one. I think there are parts of it that are definitely more clever, and I just wish they stuck the landing a little bit better. Coming in at number 31, we have Wendell Wild. God, what a fun movie. Like, that's the best way to describe this movie. It's just so fun. There's a Key and Peele reunion, but as demons. There's a like genuinely heartwarming and funny hero's journey. It does all of the private school spooky stuff from like Scooby-Doo's Ghoul School, but cranked up to a 1,000. I think Henry Selick and Jordan Peele have created such a cool world and like color, temperature, and just a film that fully takes advantage of the vehicle of animation. Also, this is a huge middle finger to Tim Burton's statements about how people of color may not fit his aesthetic or whatever the hell he said, because this is better than a lot of the Tim Burton movies that I've seen. If I had to pick any movie from this era to get a PS2 movie tie-in game, it would be this one. The game would be so fun. You're running around, you're fighting demons, you're gathering stuff. Oh, it'd be the best. It's super duper fun and a really good time. Coming at number 30, we have Chip 'n Dale. This is legitimately one of the funniest movies of the year. I'm not joking. It really just nails meta. It's not like over the top Deadpool meta, which I do enjoy, but can be a little much for me at times. It's also not like Fleabag, look at the camera meta. Instead, the way they approach it makes just enough fun of like genre tropes to let you know it's in on the joke of the genre while still being a movie of the genre. This is the closest thing I've seen to Who Framed Roger Rabbit since that movie came out. All of the jokes land. I was shocked at how much I was laughing. Andy Samberg and John Mulaney have endless chemistry. The cameos are great. Just all the visual gags are awesome. It's a really fun time for fans of Chip 'n Dale like I was growing up, or maybe even kids would probably get a kick out of it. It's a great genre cross, and I'm still surprised I enjoyed it as much as I did. At number 29, we have X. I love a good slasher, and X certainly does the genre justice. It has a stellar cast, has some really fun shots. Specifically, there's a shot involving car headlights that I think is one of my favorite of the year, and has some really gruesome kills. It's a very raunchy film, so that will sort of be based on viewer preference, how much you enjoy it or not. I thought it might have been a tad bit over-sexualized, but, you know, it's a movie about people making a porn, so I get it. That was the only time it dipped for me. All the other slasher stuff super landed. I thought it was creepy and unsettling and a lot of fun. Definitely check it out if you haven't. Number 28, we have Watcher. paranoia, anxiety-riddled horror is my absolute jam. I love it. And Watcher's a great example of that. So Micah Monroe from It Follows, a movie I adore, is in a new country and discovering that someone is watching her from across the street. It's a simple premise, but it's executed super well with some stunning shots and one of my favorite like realization moments of the entire year. Really fun movie to look at, and Micah Monroe does a great job throughout all of it. At number 27, we have The Woman King. This movie wasn't really on my radar until a friend raved about it and made me sit down and watch it. I'm so glad they did. This is a war movie at its core, which was why I was hesitant, but it has so much more than that going for it. Some of the best characters and character development I've seen from any film in that genre, and you get to watch Viola Davis and Lashana Lynch kick ass. So, I mean, what more could you want? I want to wear everything John Boyega wears in this movie, by the way. The fashion designer went off on this film. It's very good. There's a lot of heartwarming stuff going on amidst all the badass ladies, so it's a good one. At number 26, we have Resurrection. Hey, remember that thing I said about paranoia thrillers? We got another one. Resurrection starts off as a sort of pretty basic stalker kind of movie until it's not. I won't say any more than that, but the second half of this is one of the more buck wild, interesting, creepy things I've watched all year, and Rebecca Hall is so good throughout all of it that I really bought into something that maybe with a lesser actor or lesser performance I might not have as much. At number 25, we have Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I thought I was signing up for just like a stylized, somewhat normal version of the Pinocchio I'd seen, and I was so wrong. GDT's decision to frame Pinocchio in the Mussolini era of Italy and make that a central theme to the story was a masterstroke. It really cements sort of the entire point of the original fable, but in a completely new way. Also, bring your tissues because this movie is brutal and will make you cry out of literally nowhere. It's very good, but also, wow, screw you, GDT, for all the tears. At number 24, we have Scream. I love the original Scream. This is the most fun I've had with the franchise since that one. I think this script absolutely nails what the original Scream is about, and it keeps you guessing the entire time. It's worth the placement in this list for the monologue about requels on its own, but it really just does a good job of poking fun at modern horror movies throughout the entire film in the very much in a way that the original did. This is also the only film on my list to feature a former WCW World Heavyweight Champion, so it gets bonus points for that. At number 23, we have Pearl. I think my placement of Pearl here at 23 shows how absolutely nuts of a year this has been for movies. People making arguments for Pearl at the top 5, I totally hear you, and I don't disagree with your logic, I promise. If you like performance-driven movies with a splash of blood, Pearl will very clearly be up your alley. It is mine too. I just wish T. West could sometimes break himself of the slasher pacing that he's so beholden to. You know, like something happens in the beginning, then there's like an hour of build, and like the last half hour, all the dominoes start falling. I watched 3 T. West movies this year: The House of the Devil, X, and Pearl. Maybe seeing all 3 of those in such a short time span might have affected how I viewed Pearl, but his pacing is very regiment, and he does it every movie that I've seen, so maybe that's why it felt like a little bit of a lull in the middle, but goodness, Mia Goth knocks this so far out the park. She absolutely crushes it and is worth watching just for that alone, if not for all the cool setting and references to movies of the 40s and 50s. Coming in at 22, we have You Won't Be Alone. I did not see a movie about witches in Macedonia being this good or this emotional. You Won't Be Alone advertises itself as a horror film, and it's kind of that, but there's something much more thought-provoking at the center of it. It's almost something that like dawns on you, like when you walk into a room, forget why you were there, and then 15 minutes later, you're like, oh yeah, right. It kind of has that effect, or at least it did for me. It's a beautifully fucked up movie that I think everyone should check out and more people should be talking about. Number 21, we have Top Gun Maverick. My expectations for this movie were like through the ground, even after the heaps of praise it had piled on it. My thoughts were like, how can a Top Gun movie be that good? I liked the first Top Gun, but I just couldn't figure out how a Top Gun movie was going to be so good that everyone was calling it Film of the Year, that was breaking all these box office records, all this stuff. I was wrong. This movie kicks ass, and it's like undeniable. It's astute because it sort of tones down the patriotism angle that was much stronger in the 80s film, and it's still there, but it's much more subtle, so it makes it, in my opinion, more bearable. It's definitely built for a more modern audience, and I want to see it again, if nothing else, for the in-flight scenes, because that's some of the coolest filmmaking all year. At number 20, The Banshees of Inisherin. Friendship is hard. It's even harder when one of you decides just to not be friends anymore with no real explanation as to why. That's sort of the idea of Banshees of Inisherin, and the snowball effect from that decision of one of two friends, it so wonderfully rides the line between like unbelievable but not unrealistic. Farrell and Gleeson are absolutely terrific. The Irish countryside looks amazing. There's a lot of nuance and subtlety going on in this movie that I think I might appreciate even more on a rewatch, but even on first watch is so dynamic and such an interesting ride. At number 19, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Shiva Baby made me a Rachel Sennett diehard, but I think this was her real coming out party for most people. Helena Regine has put together one of the most silly, accurately written modern thrillers in years. I loved the dialogue between characters. I thought it felt so true to like teenage, college age, modern conversation. I also love the incorporation of like social media and all of the modern tech that you don't normally see in these kinds of thrillers, because people want to write them out, or, you know, phones are kind of a breaking point for a lot of scripts, so for some reason they're gone. This movie does not shy away from new technology and actually embraces it as sort of a plot point. Even if the plot is a little guessable, much like another underrated movie, Game Night, the jokes and the character moments make it so much fun along the way that I didn't really mind that the plot was a little bit figure-outable. Number 18, On the Count of Three. Two friends agreeing to commit double suicide is one hell of a starting point for a movie, but Jerrod Carmichael's directorial debut delivers a heartwarming, heartbreaking, cameo-laden, satisfying story about grief and friendship and depression as the back of it. It's wild how funny and sad this movie is at the same time. It's a real feat, and Christopher Abbott and Carmichael are both jaw-droppingly good. Like, they're both so good, and they have such innate chemistry together. I'm a huge fan of Jerrod's work, and I cannot wait to see what he does behind the camera next. At 17, we have Barbarian. Above every other movie this year, nothing kept me guessing quite the way Barbarian did. I must have been standing on about 15 rugs with how many times they pulled it out from under me. This was my first time seeing Georgina Campbell in a film, and she is so immediately and clearly a star and absolutely carries this movie. It is a batshit fun thriller for the whole family. Okay, maybe don't watch it with your family, but it's really good, and the visuals are really surprisingly good for such a limited set, which I don't mind because I like limited sets. One of my favorite horror movies of the year for sure. Number 16, Bones and All. Yes, this movie's about cannibals. Yes, it's about young love and finding herself. And yes, somehow it does work. Luca Guadagnino's directing is beautiful and moving, but I want to give a special shout out to David Kognanich and Camille DeAngelis, sorry if I've butchered those names, for one of the most inventive scripts of the year. It's one of the best paced 2+ hour movies of the entire year. And Taylor Russell gives an absolutely stunning performance in this. Timothée Chalamet is good as well, and he's also from Kentucky, so bonus points there. At number 15, we have RRR. Look, okay, of all people, trust me, I know how hard it is to watch a 3-hour movie. But, trust me again, RRR is worth it. The core of this movie is about friendship, but it covers almost every narrative topic known to man. Romance, love, culture barriers, war, the impacts of parents on their children, how to trap tigers, things common to all of us. It is pure, unadulterated, over-the-top fun. The action scenes are some of the funniest and most exhilarating bits of action that I've ever seen. The entire time you're just waiting for what stunt or idea or crazy combat sequence they're going to pull out next, and it delivers over and over and over again. This would be a great inebriated watch with some friends. It is just a blast beginning to end and will have you laughing out loud, but also caring so much about these characters. It's really impressive. There's a reason so many people are talking about it. At 14, we have Fire of Love. I originally seeked this out because I'm a huge fan of Miranda July, who narrates the documentary, and I really love her like weird artsy work. But what places Fire of Love so highly is just how damn good of a film it is. Seeing a love story between two volcanologists unfold over magma research footage and decades of archival footage that the two of them took, and the photography that they took as well, is an absolute delight. It made me sob like a baby. Sarah Dosa has done an incredible job of assembling and distilling what must be years worth of information and footage and documents down into a remarkable documentary. Katja and Mari's Craft Forever, my favorite documentary of the year. It's so well done, and shout out to the animations and interstitials as well. They're all just top notch. Number 13, Decision to Leave. From Fresh to Barbarian to Bones and All, I feel like this year is sort of chock full of meet cutes with a twist. The best example and my favorite of the bunch is Decision to Leave, which is Park Chan-wook's latest detective thriller meets romance foray. Everything's just firing in all cylinders here. The actors, specifically Tong Wei, and her captivating performance, the direction, and the editing, which is my favorite editing all year, are just killing it here. Such amazing filmmaking, overlaying a very interesting story that I don't want to spoil too much of. Can't go wrong with those two elements playing together. Number 12, we have Nope. When I left the theater for Nope, I was super happy with what I saw, but I was pretty firmly placing it below Get Out and Us of Jordan Peele's sort of triptych, if you want to think of it that way. But the further I get away from this movie, the more it keeps moving up the list. This has jumped the most positions of any movie on the list by far. I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about how iconic the visuals are. The soundtrack is great, specifically the slowed down version of Sunglasses at Night by Corey Hart is just stuck in my head on loop. And the performances from Keke Palmer and from Daniel Kaluuya are amazing as well. It's just such a fun movie that's also so smart and has so many little nuggets that you can keep dining on mentally over and over and over again, that it kept moving up my list and landed eventually at the 12th spot. I could see this moving up even further in a year. Who knows? Number 11, we have Tar. I love movies where people spiral slowly out of control. Be it something like Perfect Blue or Black Swan or an underrated movie, The Novice. Watching a star burn out on film is incredibly fascinating to me, and Tar does this about as well as any of the things I just mentioned. It does have a little bit longer of a wick than those movies, but Cate Blanchett's performance as Lydia Tarr is so transformative and so captivating that even though they're dropping a lot of nerdy music lingo that I had no idea what any of it meant, I was just glued to my TV watching this and seeing her story sort of unfold. There's a lot of really smart stuff going on here, a lot of which I didn't even comprehend because I don't know classical music very well. But from what I do know and from what I watched, I had a hell of a time with it. All right, we're in the top 10. Here we go. Number 10, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. I'm convinced that if you don't like this movie, you have no heart. I was the perfect age for the original Marcel YouTube videos, but seeing what Jenny Slate and Dean Fleischer Camp have done with Marcel and transformed it into such a heartwarming world and character and universe is just so compelling. It absolutely blew me away. I loved seeing just Marcel on the silver screen to begin with, but also just given so much care and love in that story. It's one of, if not the cutest films of the year, and it made me laugh the entire time. It filled me with love and hope and sadness, but like in a good way. It's just really special, and you should definitely watch it. And you could watch it with anyone, any age, I think, and it would land. At number 9, we have Petite Maman. With every film she releases, Celine Sciamma is moving closer to my directorial Mount Rushmore. Portrait of a Lady on Fire is an all-time great for me, and Petite Maman isn't too far from that. Gone from Portrait are the sweeping visual metaphors of longing and lust, and replaced are warm, cozy shots, but both of those films have sort of love at the center of them. This is sort of the familial love take on her filmmaking. The visuals are so warm, so intimate. The entire story is very intimate and close and small and special and feels personal, not only to Celine, but to the viewer, I think. It's also one of these movies that I would not look up any sort of marketing for, because I think it's best experienced without seeing a trailer, as are most movies, but especially this one, because if you see it organically, the concept feels so much brighter and cozier not knowing that you're getting into it. Also, shout out to the costumes, which apparently Celine Sciamma did too. The fashion in this is great. It's just a delightful, delicate movie, and those kinds of movies should really be heralded among other larger, more dark or adult things. Let's cradle our little delightful, delicate movies all the same. Number 8, Triangle of Sadness. This is the funniest movie of the year for me. Demi Adejuyigbe, who is one of my favorite Letterboxd follows out there, absolutely nailed it when he called this a highbrow, lowbrow masterpiece. That's my favorite brand of comedy, and this absolutely lands in that brand. It pokes fun at a little bit of everything in culture, but especially at the ultra-rich American sort of capitalism mindsets and the top influencers on social media. It's just an unabashed spectacle of smart and dumb humor all rolled into one sort of batshit movie that will keep you guessing and laughing and thinking and appreciating some of the smart humor and also the poop jokes. It's such a special, weird, fun film that you should check out for sure. Number 7, The Batman. Batman's my favorite superhero ever. The Batman is the best adaptation of a Batman story I've ever seen. From the layered homages to Hitchcock-era detective films, the last sequence, if you've seen it, is especially Vertigo-like, to the shot composition, the tone of the entire project. I know they use like rehoused old lenses to shoot it. To Paul motherfucking Dano putting up a Heath Ledger level performance as the Riddler. I was a kid in the candy store watching this movie. It was 3 hours and it felt like an hour. All of the characters are singing in this, and I love the interpretations in this specific universe that, like, Catwoman and Penguin and Riddler and all of the Batman characters we know and love, they feel gritty but not overly so. I loved every minute of this movie. I can't wait to rewatch it, and I never thought Dark Knight would be topped, but for me it has been. Number 6, Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is my favorite theater experience of the entire year. At launch, Everything Everywhere All at Once had a buzz about it that was kind of hard to quantify. Like, MCU fans were super excited for it. The deepest Letterboxd nerds were super excited for it. So I was tentatively excited for it as well, and it delivered on that excitement in spades. The jokes, the mountain of visual gags, the sick action sequences, those were all things that were amazing, but kind of expected. What I didn't expect was how much heart and emotion was packed into this somewhat silly movie. I cried my eyes out at one point. I also laughed my ass off when someone hit a sit-up pile driver on somebody to break their neck. So, the duality of man. And number 5, The Fallout. I think it's hard to argue that anyone has had more of a star-making year than Jenna Ortega. From X to Scream to Wednesday, she's been knocking every pitch that she's gotten completely out of the park. Her best and most important home run for me, though, is The Fallout. From what I can tell, I'm higher on this film than just about everyone, and that's okay. I think what Megan Park was able to craft is an absolute masterstroke of a film. I have a sister in high school, and this dialogue was as accurate and well written to the high school conversations that I've heard as anything I've ever seen in a modern setting. This is another movie best viewed not knowing anything about the plot, so please just go in knowing as little as possible, and I promise you, it will have an emotional impact on you. At least I think it will. It definitely did on me. And from the very moment I saw it early in the year, I knew this was going to be one of my top films of the year. And lo and behold, it was. Number 4, we have Jerrod Carmichael's Rothaniel. I was floored the first time I watched this. I've been a big fan of Jerrod's work for a little while now, but compared to the other specials of his that I've seen, Rothaniel is like another step up entirely. This is the most intimate, well-shot, hi Bo Burnham, raw, surprising stand-up special I think I've ever seen. It's also incredibly funny. I don't want to sell one part of it and not sell that it's hilarious and had me cracking up. To speak briefly to the profundity of this special, I was doing dishes when I put it on because I was like, oh, I like Jerrod Carmichael. I'll put on his stand-up special. I stopped about 15 minutes into doing dishes and just sat on my couch with a dish rag on my shoulder, flabbergasted at what I was watching, and I finished the entire thing on my couch. It took me like an hour later to go finish the dishes. That's how captivating and intimate this entire thing feels. Just go experience it if you can. It is worth it, I promise. Number 3, After Yang. My favorite bits of sci-fi are the ones that are like near future, but they're not so specific that they feel a little more attainable. Her was my first real journey into a setting like that, and After Yang follows in those footsteps beautifully. Future or not, this is such a breathy, elegant, visually stunning journey into what makes someone or something human, and how should we even begin to define that as things move into the future. Apparently, director Kogonada was a video essayist before directing. I saw that online, and that attention to detail shines through in this. It's maybe my favorite example of knowing exactly how much to show audience and how much to let them connect the dots for themselves. It is a Another incredible Colin Farrell performance. The entire cast goes off in this. It's just completely up my alley and an amazing, amazing, amazing film. And number 2, a movie that some people will consider a 2021 movie, as some probably do with After Yang as well, but it wasn't available to watch until February of 2022 in the US. I'm just saying that now. I'm pre-defending myself. Number 2, we have The Worst Person in the World. I've already waxed poetic about this movie. You can watch that on the channel. That's the only other video on the channel so far. But let me just quickly say that my feelings about it have only strengthened since then. I've actually rewatched the movie once, and it is now arguably my favorite romance movie of all time. Everything lands so well in it, from the love to the anguish to the comedy, the seduction. All of it is just masterful and carried by one of my new favorite actors, Renate Reinsve. Her performance in this is my favorite performance of the year, bar none. If you want to hear more, go check that video out. But suffice to say, this thing is a masterpiece that I thought was unbeatable until number 1, Aftersun. Holy shit. Aftersun feels like a movie that was created in a lab just for me. I think I'm about the same age as Sophie Woodby, who's the main character, and have such a tactile connection with thumbing through the exact kind of mini DV home footage that she does throughout the movie. I love films that feel like picking someone else's photo album up and thumbing through it, but not knowing the stories in between, and you just kind of leave the viewer with those details and let them draw the story to themselves. And as someone who has dealt with anxiety and depression, the story of Sophie and her dad hit home so hard that I thought I was in an earthquake for 3 days. Not since Room have I cried so much and so heavily at a film. Paul Mescal gives my favorite male performance of the year. His performance is just as much about what goes unsaid as what is said, which is always a good sign of an acting job incredibly well done. On top of all this, the visuals are also my favorite of the year. Every frame truly is a painting, and Charlotte Wells and cinematographer Gregory Oak put so much craft and detail into matching the tonal implications of the scene that you could teach a 2D composition class just off the back of it. And Frankie Corio, this is her first movie, and she and Paul Mescal have arguably the most chemistry a father-daughter has ever had on film. She's an absolute delight from beginning to end. I can't recommend this enough. I really can't. It's immediately going in my pantheon of favorite movies ever, and the fact that it's Charlotte Wells' first is absolutely mind-blowing. I cannot wait to see what she does next, because this is her first, and I can't imagine a movie much better than this. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the list. What did I miss out? What movies should I see to go on this list? What are you surprised not to hear? I didn't see Avatar before I filmed this. Sorry. That's as much as I could see. I tried my best. I hope it was good. And yeah, let me know how you would rank your own list. If you want to keep up with this list as I watch other stuff from 2022 throughout the year, you can follow me on Letterboxd. I'm Tanner Likes on Letterboxd. Or you can follow me on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram. I'll be places. I'm Tanner Likes Stuff with 2 F's most of the places, 1 F on Twitter. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you watched all the way through, I appreciate that so much. I appreciate wanting to hang out and talk movies with me. I'd be happy to talk movies with any of y'all. Let me know in the comments what I should see, and have a great day. Thanks.